Hi everyone. I thought for Quest 4 Part 1 it might be helpful to see some examples from previous classes to just give you inspiration and ideas for how you might approach your own Part 1 of Quest 4. You'll see in these examples how creative students got, how they really dug into what their own unique skills are and the ways that they wanted to express themselves to future students taking English 101. The other thing I'll point out as we look at these examples is one of the things you have to make a choice about in terms of your audience is whether you want to address it to students who will take my class in particular in the future. So me, Gail, teaching English 101, or do you want to address it to students who might be having another instructor? So any student taking online English 101, but maybe with another teacher. And I'll point out in some of these examples how these students are reflecting the choice they made about the specific audience they're communicating with. So this first one is an example of a poster. So this could be printed in a somewhat large size and posted in different places on campus to help give students this quick, very bright, refreshing look at what they can do to succeed. Kind of the top things for them to think about might be something that would go up in Geyser Hall that people could look at while they are standing in line. You'll notice in this example that the student's audience is any student taking online English 101, not just students for my class in particular. So we see one way we see that is by the use of the general instruction, the resources instructors have for you. So reflecting any instructor who's going to offer resources, or using help sessions with the instructor if and when available. So not assuming that all instructors offer that kind of resource for students. I think there's also a really nice blend here of very concrete kinds of advice, like read and reread the syllabus, as well as encouragement. You got this, and have fun. So there's a nice blend, and then just the visual, all the different colors, the bright smiley faces, it just is very eye-catching and I think very effective. So another example is this one where a student wanted to do, he really loves comic strips. So he relied on a couple of his favorite comics and created the drawings himself using, I don't know, some kind of software, but relying on familiar comic strip characters that he likes. So what he did is he has a great title page here, and then kind of a acknowledgement page. He has two different comics that he created. And then the first one, you'll see there's the comic at the top, and then he provided below that a really good explanation about the point that he wants to make through the comic. So he's not relying on the comic strip to do all of the work, but is adding some extra explanation to help the comic strip make sense. So it's almost like the comic strip is the teaser, and then he offered additional explanation. And he has two different ones. He did the same thing in both examples. So that one was a lot of fun as well, and really made use of what he's interested in his own unique talents and skills. The next one is a listicle, and this student chose the top 6 ways to become successful in English 101 with really clear items in the list, ranging from things all the way from motivation and resilience to time management, to completing major assignments, to avoiding academic dishonesty, having both a conclusion and an introduction. So a good example of a listicle here. And the next one, this student is a math major and really wanted to create his communication based on his love of math and what he feels he's best at. So he turned the advice into a formula for success and created a very specific, he has a kind of a story problem here. He's talking about habit development and the time of hours per week, then creates a formula from those factors with the table here, And he also made use of creating a pie chart with specific resources that are part of that pie chart in terms of how you succeed. And then yet another formula here for success. So really great use of something he's interested in and turning it into a version that any student could make use of and appreciate. The next one, is a recipe for success. And I really love how the student here created different segments of the recipe. So your traditional ingredients list, but in that ingredients list, we have some very concrete things you need to succeed, as well as things that maybe aren't quite as obvious, motivation, your desire to succeed, your peers, being able to rely on each other and how you help one another and push one another. He also created this great shopping list, kind of the objectives, the basic things that you're going to need in your cart. And he relied on talking about each of the quests and what you need in your shopping cart, quote unquote, for each of the major quests. And then he took the directions and talked about the things you need to do using your ingredients. Use that calendar, make sure you have making recordings, so then you're using your notebook, making good use of your time. And then he has a final section, which I thought was really creative, the make it a meal section. He wanted to add a few additional things beyond what were in the directions or the instructions, and really created some additional good advice for students. And there's one more here. Oh, here's the last one. So this one is an example of a newsletter, and this one is pretty long. The student put a lot of time and effort into creating the different sections of the letter, the newsletter, but I thought it was so cleverly done. And this is a student who started English 101 not feeling like she had any confidence or knowledge about working in electronic documents. She didn't know how to create a newsletter. She didn't have any experience with that. But she kind of taught herself, and she started with a template and made good use of the template and created a final product that she was really super proud of, and for good reason. And she has several different articles based on her major pieces of advice. So one article is her survival overview. She has an article on managing your time. She has an article on utilizing the tools available to you, and in particular, the Becoming Rhetorical ebook. She has, she wanted to really highlight the interactive video activities from the ebook that she found in particular very helpful. She has a whole page dedicated to writing workshop, which she found a really valuable and important experience. And then an article on not being afraid to ask for help. So in each article, she makes good use of kind of newsletter or newspaper guidelines where you have a good heading, you have a good catchy subheading, you have relatively short paragraphs, you have a good mix of images and text. So she just did a really great job with this one, and she said she had so much fun working on it. She really was enjoying the creative elements of it. The other thing I love is that she does this little technique that a lot of newspapers have where you have highlights of what's to come later in the newspaper. So these are little indications of articles that the person can find and read. So it's like a tease to get people to go to those pages to read everything. So those are several examples from my previous English 101 class last spring, and I hope you find some inspiration and that you have as much fun working on your Quest 4 project as my students in my previous classes had. I'm really excited to see what you create. Thanks, everyone.